Good morning, friends. Welcome to Coffee Talk this morning. We are in a very fun place today because we're going to be talking about fun and the fun things that are going to happen in this place. And so, welcome to this fun time together.
How many times can you say fun in one sentence?
And have it make grammatical sense.
So, welcome to just this hangout. We would love to connect with you just through this time, but also through our Sunday morning gatherings and through our life groups and all these things. And so this is just another connection point for us as we move together through life. And so what we do here is we look back and see what God has been doing and speaking to us, and then we look forward and we look back and look at a sermon. And Chris brought the sermon to us this week, and so thank you for that, Chris. Thank you for bringing like the ultimate character study of people, and I do wish there should have been like a microphone dropped down from the ceiling just at that exact moment.
A little bit of reverb on it too.
Coming in at 5 foot 4 inches, right. 195 pounds, right? And
so, David,
that'd be pretty chunky, wouldn't it? Like
no, I'm assuming like.
Ill.
You have to be carrying a lot of armor around, and like
you're right.
You'd be fit, but I think you'd have a lot of weight to you. Also, later on, when you're the king, you're probably just sitting around, hanging out.
Well, we didn't get into it on Sunday, but some of the ways he's described in his final days actually sounds like he might have withered away a little bit. Like they talk about his struggle with keeping warm at night, for example.
Man after my own heart.
I don't picture a particularly bulky guy who's needing.
But I just like that you
buddies.
made him 5'4", because that just makes me feel tall.
I will say so.
Yeah.
I always thought he wasn't he?
I maybe.
Didn't
I don't
really say,
recall.
did they?
He
wasn't as tall as Saul, but Saul was.
Right?
Yeah.
Saul has been described as the giant of Israel. I will confess, though, when I was picturing David, I sort of did picture Jeff a little bit.
Wow,
like,
thank you.
Man, in some ways,
up.
I do think you probably would have shared some characteristics.
That's true.
Right?
I would say you're both good shepherds.
Oh.
I will also say this, and I won't point fingers.
Let's keep talking about Jeff.
On Monday night, what we've been doing is, we take a character study similar to Sunday morning. We've been doing on Monday night with our youth. And so I said, when I say King David, what comes to mind? And one of our youth actually said, Pastor Jeff's sermon. And I went...
You're like, I preached that sermon.
Well, hold on, though. Wanting the best possible interpretation, my brain went, they must mean Ruth, because you talked about how Ruth was, the great-grandparent of David, and how... and so that's kind of more where my brain went. Yeah. And then they eventually went, oh, no, wait a minute, you did preach that sermon. Yeah, thanks for joining us. But that's okay, we all have those moments.
Hey, they were there. They were there. Mostly
they did get hit in the head with a soccer ball just moments before, so hopefully there's not a concussion. But it's great.
Were you having fun in this room?
We had a lot of fun in this room, but that's yet to come for a discussion.
Okay.
We need to talk about this.
So get back to David.
Mm-hmm.
So Chrissy brought a couple of things out. Jeff, was there a couple of things that stood out to you as you kind of listened through? Even relating to how God chose him, or
well, I'll back up and say a couple of things about the sermon that I was noticing was I really liked how you introduced David. You listed off all these things, and it was just like, wow, this guy, right? And it just makes you want to know this guy. And you said, I'm not going to give you homework to read all this stuff, but it's kind of like, I'd like to go and read more of, 1st and 2nd Samuel again. And I think that if we're doing that in our preaching, if we're inviting people into a story that they want to know more about, that's awesome. So well done on that, and it just excited me for David and learning more. But I liked your 4 points. Can you remind me? I can remember the first 2 and the fourth. What's the So can you just go through them?
Sure.
Again?
Yeah, I love this test. Do you remember your answer?
Yeah.
Right. The first one is that it's all God's doing.
Yes.
Right? And He's the one who calls.
Yeah.
It's Him. He says, "I brought you from leading the sheep or tending the sheep to leading my people."
Yes.
It's all about God's work. The second one is that it wasn't something that David merited. Sure, I think we would be quick to kind of go, well, he was a good shepherd and he showed after. Yes, and throughout his life we see that he's someone who longed after God, so he certainly had a role to play in all of that, but it wasn't like when God calls people, it isn't because of what we've done, it's just because of his work and our faithfulness and our, and who, it's more who we are than what we do. And that's what I wanted to really communicate there in that second point.
You don't get to be king just because you've killed a lion with your sling.
Right.
That's not the basis for choosing a king.
Exactly.
Right?
If you were to follow the convention, then David should not have been king, right? But God was doing something different, and it was not about what David did. It was about God's work.
And it harks back to the first point. It's who He has made you to be, and where He has placed you, and the time He's placed you. All about Him, right? So
David was faithful to God. But that's even not. David hadn't yet been faithful to God when David was called by God. And I guess that's really what I was trying to say there too, is that at first it was just God choosing it because of who David was. And then the third thing is a look at the advisors that God put in David's life, right? The three prophets who had the role of helping David, and it wasn't just different phases, different things, right? But always a refocus, a reminder. In the case of prophets like Gad and Nathan, for whom David might have started to lose sight of what it was actually he was called to do. And for Samuel, that very first initial anointing and calling. These people played an important role in David's life in terms of him staying on track with his calling. And I think we all need that. Either someone to help us understand it when we're first trying to figure out, okay, what would God want for me? And then sometimes that does change in later years in our life, or we just need a reminder of what it was and all of that. And so, we all need community to help us understand our calling. That was kind of the third point.
I think we've ignored that a lot in different ways in our Christian upbringing, maybe in the past 50 years or however long. There's the importance of community around our growth. We tend to think, if I know enough, but character is formed in community. It really is, and I've been reading and thinking about that a lot lately, how important community is, and that's just a good reminder. And then and then your advisors come out of that community, challenge you like Nathan did to David. When you've gone astray or going astray, help guide you and direct you. We've talked about that in our own lives, how somebody said something that kind of redirected us. Sorry, and then the fourth.
Well, and the fourth thing,
and this is where I really was excited, because I was like, yes, go Chris, youth pastor. Sorry, go ahead, tell us the fourth.
Standing at 6'0". The fourth point is we serve an eternal God, and it's not all about us. Those are the precursors to the fourth point. That anything we do has an impact, and I'm not a big fan of the word legacy, because I don't think my focus should be leaving something of myself behind, but because God is eternal, and even after I pass on, God's still in love with the people who will come after me and doing something in them. So it's a reminder that actually what David did was set up the next generation. And I believe we're all called to do that in some way or another. Prepare them for success. And whatever our calling looks like, it's going to have an impact, and it needs to be one that prepares them to do well. And so that was the fourth point. Is just
I just love that.
Set them up for success.
Yeah, I just love that, because, I have a passion for youth, and I know we both have a passion for youth and for children, And
Well, I
just thought
actually
that was
honestly
so good.
believe that's all three of us.
Yeah,
Like,
well, yeah. Well, sorry, yeah.
Well, no, like, absolutely.
but it's expressed in different ways,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I think that's one of the cool things that we have at Lakeview here is that, you know, whether it's Kevin and his, you know, camp ministry background, the way he involves youth in worship and equipping them to become like a new generation of worshipers and worship leaders, you know, all not just the work you did in the past in youth ministry, but the way you move our church to be mindful of the way our decisions impact the next generation. That is a role you've taken on. And then I just get to have fun on Monday nights with kids where we rip this room apart and, you know, use baseball bats to whack soccer balls at each other. And it's great. Like, it's all different forms of an impact on the next generation.
But I just love because when we talked about David, I didn't really see that. And you brought it out. And I was just like, yes, that's so good. Like, you know, like it was, you know, we saw David do that, and it's so true. And then for you to be able to present that as an ambassador for youth, you know, and that was just great. So,
well, I mean, I mean, to jump ahead a few centuries, I mean, often Jesus is described in youth ministry circles as the ultimate youth pastor, right? The 12 disciples he gathered around him, with the exception of maybe Peter, are usually typically understood to be younger men, right? Usually late teens kind of idea. Peter, we think, is older because he's described as being married already.
His mother-in-law,
Right, he has a mother-in-law. That's how we understand Peter to be a little bit older. It's conceivable some of the others were older too. We just don't know. And you know, and in that way, Jesus is also a son of David. He, you know, he is our model. And though David didn't have Jesus he wasn't, I think, having any of that in mind. There's great biblical precedent for equipping the next generation.
Something that you and I talked about when we were talking about David, leading up, God didn't call him to something. You know, we've been talking about what does God call us to, but I thought that was really, really good to bring out. Sometimes He's not calling us to something. There's so many things we might feel like, oh, I see this problem, or I see this I'd like to do, or I see this. Sometimes He's saying, no, not that, right? And I thought that was really good.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because I think one of the things that was on my mind this week last couple of weeks in preparation is twofold. One, that was really it for David. He wanted to do something. Like I said, it was good. It was a good thing. It's a great thing to want to honor God, create a place where the people can come together and worship Him that's permanent. And I think that's what David was seeing. It wasn't just the tent thing. It's like, that's temporary. And I think David really wanted something that would last for God. And that's a good want. It's a good thing. And I think God recognized that too, which is why He said, that's for someone else. And so what David could have just been like, oh man, why did God say no and dwell in the no? But instead He saw an opportunity within it. And I think that we've often heard no from God, and that's a great opportunity for us to respond in a similar way. Okay, let's not dwell on the no. Where is an opportunity for us? I also think one of the things that was in the back of my mind is sometimes as churches, we love to see something that another group is doing and go, that's working, that's great, let's do it too. And instead of really asking God, is that for us? Because there's, you know, I think of like a soup kitchen as an example. Sometimes a church will set one up and they'll have that ministry and it'll be really good, it'll be meeting a need, and another church can come along and go, oh, that's really good, we should do that too. Oh, maybe. Maybe. I'm not going to say no. Who am I to say no to that? But at the same time, the question is it really for them? And so sometimes what you have then is competing ministries and an over service instead of the right service.
And sometimes you end up thinning that volunteer base to say, we're just going to try and do everything all at once and not do anything really well. I think very much about the way that drama camp came about. Nobody was kind of doing that. Nobody in our area really does that. No church specifically does that. But it really came from a person and a calling upon a person's life of being passionate about sharing things to the next generation, and about what they're passionate about is theater, and being able to share that. And like, even before then, we were doing lots of drama and stuff like that, but this took it to another level. And it's like, okay, everybody else is doing lunch and supper. Okay, we're going to open a breakfast place, right? So that we can serve in the way that God wants us in this way. But it also means, no, we're not going to serve this and this and this, right? So, and I think That's amazing. That's amazing what God's calling sometimes does and doesn't do. It sometimes can confuse us as well too. Like,
well, it's complicated. I remember the reason I struggled when my wife asked me, "Have you thought about youth ministry?" When I was an engineer, I said, "I don't know what it means to be called." Yes, I've thought about it, but what's it mean to be called, right? So this is a complicated. Maybe it's hard to. It's not so left-brained. It's not so like I can just, okay, how do you sit down and write a formula? You just it's much more than that, right? It's a relational, it's a community thing, and
it's different for everybody.
Struggle, yeah. And so I mean, there's parts of it that are universal, right? Accept the Lord, grow deeper in the relationship with Him, but then your specific things that you're called to. That's why we're spending a lot of time on it, and we won't be comprehensive, even in our 8-10 weeks of talking about it, but hopefully it's getting discussion.
Well, there's some
thoughts.
themes that will be repetitive, and I think that's what I'm starting to see, and I trust a lot of you are seeing it too. Some of these things are very repetitive.
Yeah.
But there's all these outliers that to cover everyone and nuance everyone, it's just you can't. That's why we spend our whole lives studying the Bible, right? Because there's always more to kind of look at it from this angle and this angle and this angle and see. But you know what I heard in what you saying there was, it was a person who came to you in community and said, "Have you considered this?"
It's very true.
That is why I'm here today. I remember very clearly a former teacher, I was in grade 11, I think it was, saying, over for dinner, reconnecting, because they had moved away and they were close before, and just saying, like, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm thinking this or this or this. And they're like, help, the question was, why would you ever do that? Not ministry, it was the other thing. Why would you ever do that? And I went, because I didn't think the other was actually a legitimate option, right? And so then, it was that conversation that really steered towards, because I think we understand the voice of God better, not alone in a closet or a wilderness, but in community.
It's so true. I don't know if this happened for you, but my next step was go to the advisors in my life. Hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think? Do you agree? Do you don't agree? What do you? And it was person after person that I trusted that confirmed that for me and guided that. And you're right. And the church that I was involved in, having that support too. So
Well, and the other side of that is other advisors in the life to say, okay, but pay attention to this or watch out for this that I see in you too that could become, obstacles or stumbling blocks that aren't no's. It's not a closed door, but it's just be aware of this. And we need all of that really to follow faithfully.
Very much.
And you're right. That's why community does matter, and that's why that shared experience, but also being able to speak into people's lives and making yourself open to when people speak those things to you, because sometimes there's going to be encouragement, and sometimes there's going to be admonishment and some stuff like that too. So it's
which we can talk about life groups again. That's why life groups are so important. That's why being here for those of us who are able, is so important, because we rub shoulders with each other. We get to know each other. We can see these things in each other,
And so that was David in a nutshell, but obviously there's a whole lot more to it. 2 Samuel 7 is still one of my favorite passages, because it's very much a messianic, pointing to Jesus and the amazing things that he's going to do, but also that promise fulfilled that comes along in God's plan, and it's amazing to see. And so hopefully you're being impacted by this and by so many of these other character studies that we're very, very briefly touching on, but really just focusing in on that calling when God says, all right, now's the time. Right? And so that's exciting. So that was David this last week. This coming week, there's going to be actually something a little bit different as well too. As we said on Sunday, one of our deacons, Brad Long, is going to come share with us as well. And so we're going to hear part of his story and what God has placed on his heart. And so we're really excited about that.
I think there'll be a call in there. He might not say it, but we'll look for it, What's the call?
It's still part of the series. So so you can be looking forward to that and praying for Brad. And so that's coming up this Saturday. But Friday night, Chris, what's happening in here? Why
Friday
are we having
night,
so
it
much
is
fun?
Friday! Friday, apparently. I'm trying to say it as the youngins do, which I realize is incredibly similar to foyer or foyer. And I'm like, why didn't we spell it like
Friday in the foyer? Come on.
Well, registration for Friday will be in the foyer. Just to say that one 10 times fast. It'll be
to have fun,
Well, hold on now. Now you're overstepping, Jeff. That's...
Just trying to get that word in there.
So it is because I had to have the kids explain this to me too. It's a fun event, hence the yay, on Friday, and it's for grades 3 to 6. We're gonna from 6:30 to 8. Mostly be in this room where we're going to play some games together, but we'll a little thought from God's word, for all of us as well. And so just invite you to either send your kids or grandkids or neighbor kids or whichever kids in your life are that, grade 3 to 6 zone that would love to come and be part of that. It'd be great.
And this is a free event.
Free event. Just
no registration.
Well, once you get here, we gotta take care of all the, making sure we don't lose any kids and all that. So we do have you sign kids in.
No pre-registration.
But no pre-registration. Right, exactly. It's not like a VBS program or anything like that. You don't just show up, sign in the foyer, and so please don't just slow down and kick your kids out the car on the way by. We do need an adult representative to come inside and scribble a name on a piece of paper so that we just want to be faithful in making sure we don't lose any kids, and to make sure then also that all the responsible adults for these children are aware of what's going on too. So there's with kids stuff, it's a little more details to take care of there, but that's okay. That's all part of the fun. And our youth have been diligently planning and preparing, and that's the part of me that's just so excited about this. I love hanging out with the kids in here. I think it'll be fun watching them run back and forth and do all kinds of stuff. That's great. But the icing on the cake is that it's a group of our youth who are like, let's do this.
Do you know what's really cool? Sorry, I just have to point that out. You are doing number 4 in your sermon, preparing the next generation, and they are trying to do the next generation too. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So,
no, you're right. It really is, I think. It's hard not to think that God's going, okay, good, to get it. Not to pat ourselves on the back, but just sort of we're just trying to be faithful. Like all these other people we've been talking about all these weeks, right? It's about faithful with what we have. And that's all we're trying to do here. And it happens to be fun.
Good.
Right? That's the beauty of it. It just is a lot of fun. So
it's going to be an awesome weekend. You can be looking forward to that and praying for it. And Jeff, was there anything else you wanted to tell us?
So if you are not getting the weekly emails, Lori sends out an email that we all kind of contribute to at the end of the week on Friday. And I just want to encourage you to open that up if you're getting it, and if you're not getting it, to sign up to get it, because not only does it tell you all these things that we're talking about, Friday, Faith Night, these things that are coming up that we tell you here, but it also has every week there's different people from our church that are on a prayer list. And so if you open it up and pray for those people each week throughout the course of the year, you will pray for everyone in our church who we know who are in our directory a few different times throughout the year. And in addition, it has a Church of the Week in West Kelowna. It has a Church of the Week from our BC Association. It has missionaries that we're praying for. So I just want to encourage you to take notice, to open up that email and interact with it, because we don't just do that to send you something. We do it for a purpose and a reason, and that is a really important, for us to be praying for each other intentionally is really important. So
that's really good. You said a word in there that reminded me of something else, and that's Faith Night.
Yes.
Not that we're still selling tickets, but if you purchase tickets, they'll be available for pickup on Sunday.
Oh, perfect.
And so, and if you're suddenly going, oh no, I really meant to sign up for that, There are still some tickets available, but you would have to contact the West Kelowna Warriors. And anyways, talk to me and we'll walk through how to do that. But the Lakeview Heights Baptist block has been purchased, and if you got on the list, then see me on Sunday, and I'd love to put some tickets in your hand. That. Don't forget about it. It's going to be fun. And and again, if you missed it and you really still went, oh no, I meant to, talk to me about how to still get in on that, and we'll connect you with that opportunity as well.
So thanks for joining us. Thanks for looking back and looking forward and seeing what God is going to do and continue to do as we look at these character studies, as even we share our stories. We're going to keep sharing some of our testimonies through these weeks as well too, through the service, and we're going to be really enjoying that. And so blessings on your week. Have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you on Sunday.